While working part-time as a waiter, I saw my own girlfriend at someone else's birthday banquet. Only then did I learn she was actually a little princess of Beijing's elite circle. She'd always liked to lecture me, saying roses were beneath her and not fit for the occasion. Yet that day at the party, she ordered 999 roses just to offer her blessings to that man. It happened to be my birthday, too. I watched quietly, then turned and walked away. Later, I blocked every way to reach her and left that city. She lost it. I'd met Jessica Miller while we were both working part-time in college, at the cafe next to campus. The first moment I saw her white shirt, delicate features, fair skin, she looked like the penniless campus beauty straight out of a novel. As we got closer, we added each other on WeChat, studied together in the self-study room, and picked up side gigs together. Thanks to Jessica's stunning looks, everyone on campus knew there was a broke campus belle at the cafe next door. People lined up to add her on WeChat. At first it was fine. Later, annoyed, she simply pushed me forward and said I was her boyfriend. I was caught off guard and about to refuse, but there was a plea in those dark eyes of hers, and, almost against my will, I didn't correct her. I chose to go along. In due course, she confessed to me, and we went from nominal boyfriend and girlfriend to the real thing. After graduation, we rented a place and moved in together. She was an orphan. My family was from deep in the mountains. We'd both known hardship, and I cared a lot about money. Big city living is expensive, and fresh grads are cheap labor. On our days off, we'd take side jobs to pad the little wedding fund for our future. When I landed a temp waiter gig paying $200 an hour, I was giddy for a long while. But when I saw Jessica, who was supposed to be working overtime at the office, show up at the banquet, the joy froze on my face. The always frugal Jessica shed the plain look she wore around me and slipped into a red strapless gown. The bangs that hit her brows were swept back. She looked drop-dead gorgeous. If not for that face, I might not have recognized her. The trust fund kids at the party fell over themselves to fawn on her, while she looked down on their fawning like a goddess. Seeing me standing there stunned, Kristen, my coworker for the gig, gave me a push. He asked worriedly what was wrong. I shook my head, stared at Jessica, star of the show, and, with a bitter taste in my mouth, asked, "Who is she?" Kristen glanced over and lowered his voice. "Word is, she's the Miller family's little princess in Beijing's inner circle." I stared at the utterly unfamiliar Jessica in the distance, and a nameless emotion welled up. The girlfriend I'd lived with for 4 years, once a pitiful orphan with no parents, had in a heartbeat become a little princess of Beijing's elite. I instinctively pulled out my phone and texted her. Jessica was lounging there, surrounded by people, when her phone buzzed. Everyone looked at her and joked, "Miss Jessica, who is it?" She picked up the phone, gave the screen a perfunctory glance, and said carelessly, "Nothing, spam." Hearing that, it felt like I'd been dropped into an ice cellar. My whole body trembled. So to her, Luke Dawson, was just someone dispensable. Makes sense. After 4 years together, I didn't even know her true identity. I suddenly felt pathetic, as if all my efforts had been for nothing. I said nothing, watching the revelry from afar. A man in a suit sat beside Jessica. The two of them were flirting shamelessly, not caring who saw, syncing up like a loving couple. Kristen rolled out the 5-tier cake the kitchen had spent 5 hours making. It was covered in fruit, and even from a distance you could smell the sugary cream. People presented him with gifts, one after another. Jessica went last. With a grand wave, she had 999 roses brought in. The man was so moved he kissed her right there. The rich kids around them whooped and egged them on. I stood with a few others in the mascot suits we'd been told to wear, awkwardly clutching armfuls of roses. My eyes felt dry, but I couldn't cry. I didn't even have words for how I felt. Through the mask, I looked at Jessica as if meeting her for the first time. Back when we just started dating, on our first Valentine's Day, we were out shopping and saw roses by the street. I thought I'd buy her some. I handed her the roses, thinking she'd be happy. She wasn't. She just lifted a brow, faintly disgusted. What did she say then? Roses don't symbolize love. It's just marketing brainwashing girls. So tacky. Who even gives roses these days? Seeing she didn't want the flowers, I joked, "Tacky? I don't think so. If my baby gave me flowers, I'd treasure them. Even if they withered, I'd still think they're beautiful." She frowned and said, "Who's going to give you roses? Keep dreaming." Before I could get upset, Jessica plucked a blade of foxtail grass from the park lawn and made me a makeshift ring. I was moved to tears back then, and even felt guilty about being childish. Seeing this scene now, I just felt ridiculous. She never thought giving roses was tacky. Maybe she just didn't want to give them to me. The party was roaring, but none of it was mine. I just watched until it ended, picked up my pay, and left. It was nearly dawn when I got back to our rental. Jessica hadn't returned. I collapsed on the couch, exhausted. It was my birthday, too. I'd planned to finish the gig and use the money to buy myself a cake and a small present. Maybe I drifted home in a daze. I didn't do anything along the way, just went straight back. I looked around at the decor and lay out everything we'd pieced together bit by bit over the years we'd lived together. We'd even promised that once we earned enough, we'd buy this place. So I saved hard. Even though it was my birthday, when I saw a $200 an hour gig, I still took it. And really, if I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have seen the truth. Would I have just kept lying to myself? I sat on the couch hugging myself. I don't know how long had passed. Before I heard the door open, Jessica was back. She'd changed out of the extravagant gown from the banquet and slipped into her old clothes, transforming once more from Beijing's spoiled little princess into an ordinary office worker. I looked at her but said nothing. Jessica changed, then came straight over and hugged me. I pulled away, noticing the fatigue on her face, and asked, "Why didn't you reply to my messages?" Jessica froze for a moment, then quickly recovered. "Baby, I'm sorry. I didn't see them. You know how crazy work was today." Her expression carried a trace of grievance. If I hadn't seen with my own eyes how she shone at that banquet, I might have been fooled by her act. "Do you even remember?" My voice was rough and dry as I spoke slowly. "Today's my birthday." I had thought she really was working late. That maybe she'd surprise me afterward. For 3 of the past 4 years, she'd been by my side on my birthday. Turns out she'd simply forgotten. Or maybe she was just tired of me. She forgot her real boyfriend's birthday while throwing 999 roses at someone else, a gesture she'd never given me. My nose stung. I wanted to cry, but I held it in. Jessica had clearly forgotten. She frowned apologetically and promised to make it up with a gift tomorrow. I didn't answer. She thought I was sulking over not getting a present, so she soothed me half-heartedly and went to sleep. I didn't yell or argue. I just watched her. Watched the sleeping face I'd traced in my mind 1,000 times, and suddenly it felt like a stranger's. We'd fought before, even broken up, but always over tempers. This time was different. "Jessica, this time, I really don't want you anymore." I handed in my resignation. Without telling her, I booked a ticket to City Z. As I left, I looked back at the city. It had been my dream ever since meeting Jessica. Back then, young and naive, I thought I could spend a lifetime with her. Dreamed of building a home together in this city. But in truth, it was always just my dream alone. Now, the dream was over. I grabbed my suitcase, turned, and boarded the bus. On the ride, I stared at Jessica's profile picture and, almost against my will, sent her one last message. Then I blocked her everywhere. "Jessica, the game of playing poor ends here. Real life isn't a movie. No one wastes years wallowing over a failed romance. Not even me." Time moved forward. I pulled myself together, started sending out resumes again. But not being a fresh grad in a world full of degree holders, my bachelor's didn't give me much of an edge. Every day I was stuck in the loop: resumes, interviews. Thankfully, during the years with Jessica, I'd saved some money, hoping to build us a home. So being unemployed for now didn't put me in a desperate spot. The grind kept me too busy to think much about her. Soon enough, I landed a new job and finally settled down. My life became a simple rhythm office to rental and back, alone, living quietly. I honestly believed the world was big enough that, once I left that city, Jessica and I would never cross paths again. But fate had other plans. While giving a report one day, I saw her again, Jessica, sitting in the chair of the new manager's office. Months had passed, and she was back in her elite princess persona, clad in a tailored suit, looking just like the Jessica from that night. Of course, she'd never really been the poor girl Jessica. Facing the parachuted-in manager, I pretended not to know her, kept it strictly professional, and handed over the documents. As I turned to leave, someone yanked my hand hard. I looked down Jessica. She pulled me inside. With no one else around, she stood before me, Even expressionless, I could feel her anger. Why? Her dark eyes burned with irritation. I just looked at her, offering no reply. Whether in compromise or resignation, Jessica lowered her gaze, looking at me as if I were a sulking cat. Don't make a scene, okay? It's my fault. Don't make a scene? Just like that, she pinned everything on me being unreasonable. I gave a bitter laugh. Who dare blame Miss Miller, the princess? Hearing that, her hand froze midair before dropping onto my head, stroking like she was calming a pet. Her voice was calm. Just over this? Don't be mad, all right? Let's go eat. Light, dismissive, glossing over everything without even an explanation, let alone an apology. She still thought I was the obedient pushover who'd do anything for her. And the roses? I pressed, staring her down, hoping for an answer. Her expression stayed even. He's just a childhood friend. 999 roses at his birthday party, and you call that a childhood friend? Jessica explained. It was his birthday that day. Throughout the whole confrontation, she stayed calm, like an indifferent spectator. Hearing it, my nose stung again. Jessica, do you remember all these years together? On my birthdays? On Valentine's Day, you said I didn't deserve your roses? I'd forced myself to forget those words, to believe I didn't like roses. But who doesn't want flowers from their lover on special days? You like roses? I'll have them sent to you right now. I stared at her earnest face. Even now, Jessica didn't understand what she'd done wrong. Jessica, maybe I was wrong from the start. You never loved me. I shook off her hand, pushed open the door. As my fingers touched the knob, her voice came from behind. Luke, my patience has limits. I've already explained. What more do you want? I opened the door. If you dare walk out that door, I won't chase you again. We're done for good. Jessica's voice was a warning, wielding our relationship as leverage. Manager Jessica, I've delivered the documents. Sorry, I still have work to do. I didn't hesitate. I turned and left. Why hadn't I seen it sooner? So many times Jessica had made it clear she never loved me. Every argument, I was the one to bow my head first. Maybe my favoritism had given her that confidence. This was the first time Jessica had ever lowered hers. Maybe she simply couldn't believe I'd actually walk away. She still thought, like before, that I loved her, couldn't live without her, and tried to use that to force me to give in. But Jessica, you were wrong. I quietly focused on my work. Yet, as if trouble never came alone, the once harmonious coworkers began targeting me. Project plans were constantly rejected and sent back to redo. Every time after work, I was singled out to stay late. Coworkers would fall silent whenever I walked by. I knew all of this was Jessica's doing. After 4 years with her, I knew her nature best. She looked aloof, but she held grudges fiercely. Before, she'd used these tactics on others. Now, she was using them on me. At night, as usual, I was left to work overtime. The vast office held only me. Being alone made my mind wander. I thought back to how Jessica was when we first met. Maybe it was the freshness. When we first got together, we loved being glued to each other. Our favorite thing was library dates. I'd explain assignments to Jessica again and again. Sometimes she'd stare at me in a daze. And when I noticed, I'd just tap her head with my pen. Cheeks burning, and keep going. Maybe it was novelty. Maybe, at some moment, Jessica truly did love me. But now, I didn't care to find out. A lie is still a lie, no matter how pretty the wrapping. Probably from the heavy overtime, I sat slumped at my desk, unfinished work still on the screen. Then, Manager Larry called me into his office for his usual scolding. Nothing but empty words, really. I looked at the balding, middle-aged man's twisted face and just found it ridiculous. I knew clearly this was all just to curry favor with Jessica. The flab on Larry's face quivered as he jabbed a finger at me, cursing me out. I kept my head down, hadn't even reacted yet, when a cup of hot coffee came crashing down on my head. The hair I'd combed neatly that morning was now drenched in thick coffee. The scalding liquid streamed down my hair, my cheeks, my clothes. I was a mess. The door behind me opened. Jessica walked in, that same man from the birthday banquet trailing behind. Coffee soaked my hair, face, and clothes, shame flooding me instantly. Jessica glanced at me. then slid her gaze past me to Larry. The once arrogant Larry sprang to his feet, nodding and bowing to her. Jessica sweetly motioned the man behind her to sit, then chatted with Larry about work. I stood silent, as though the office contained only the three of them. The man seemed to know who I was. He looked at me with a mocking smile, then pulled a pack of tissues from his bag and offered it. I froze. Didn't take it. When Jessica finished with Larry, she looked at me, voice edged with warning. If you can't do the job, then quit. In that moment, I felt suffocated. She knew full well this was all her doing, that Larry was just trying to please her. Maybe it was the injustice my eyes filled, but for pride's sake, I held the tears back. Walking out of that office, my emotions steadied bit by bit. That hot coffee had woken me up. I was gonna quit. The resignation process was quick. The next day, I packed up my desk and left. 2 resignations in less than half a year. I decided to take a break, give myself a vacation. While I was dodging reality, eating hot pot and shopping with friends, Jessica showed up. Her face was dark. The instant she saw who was beside me, her expression froze cold. Who is she? She demanded. At that moment, my friend had gone back to the hot pot place to grab something she forgot, leaving me with her younger sister, a university student here. Jessica's arrogant tone was unbearable. I didn't answer her question, just shot back. And what does who she is have to do with you? Luke, what the hell are you still fussing about? Jessica was still as haughty as ever. Sorry, but I don't think he wants to talk to you. Jennifer Delaney, my friend's younger sister, stepped in front of me. Jessica glared at the younger woman, veins bulging at her temple, her face cold. She snapped, I'm his boss! You have no right to stop me from speaking with him! Jessica, I've already quit. You're not my boss, and I don't want to talk to you about anything. I shattered her illusion. Jessica looked deranged, eyes bloodshot, like a lioness in fury. Luke, unless I approve your resignation, you're still part of the company. Jennifer laughed out loud at the sight of the raging woman. Miss Jessica, I guess you've never read a book in your life. Zero knowledge of the law. Half mockery, half scorn. Before Jennifer even finished, Jessica's hand came flying. Jennifer barely managed to turn her head. The slap still grazed her cheek, hard enough to leave a red mark. It was obvious Jessica had used her full strength. Jennifer's first instinct, hot-blooded at 20, was to hit back. But with me standing behind her, she held her anger down, pressing a hand to her face. Seeing this, I rushed forward, checking Jennifer's cheek. Jennifer, are you okay? How's your face? She covered it, eyes red, looking at me like she'd been wronged. She wasn't seriously hurt, but guilt surged inside me. Today, my friend had asked his sister, who studied here in City Z, to join us for the day, and now, because of me, she was hurt. Looking back at Jessica, my voice carried reproach. Jessica, I don't think there's anything left between us worth saying. We broke up a long time ago. From now on, your road is yours, mine is mine. If you bother me again, I'll call the police and report harassment. Jessica froze at how things had unfolded, glaring hard at Jennifer, even trying to shove past her to grab my hand. But Jennifer moved fast, and she didn't get the chance. Seeing she'd lost ground, Jessica softened her tone helplessly. Luke, can we sit down and talk this through? By now, her arrogance was gone, her eyes full of expectation. I turned my gaze away and answered flatly, there's nothing left to talk about between us. Then I pulled Jennifer away with me. Jessica just stood there in defeat, watching us leave, her lowered hand clenched into a tight fist. After that incident, I invited Jennifer to dinner to thank her. She gladly accepted. But as we sat down to eat, Jessica appeared again, like a ghost that wouldn't leave. I looked up at her, drenched and disheveled at the doorway, rain dripping from her bangs. She looked abandoned, her face full of grievance, her eyes wounded. Luke, I know I was wrong. I only lashed out because I was so angry you left without a word. Even now, Jessica was still making excuses. I didn't listen to her so-called explanation. Instead, I warned her, Jessica, I don't want to hear it. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. I told you before, if you show up again, I'll call the police. So, are you walking out on your own, or do I make you? She seemed about to argue. Brother, are you ready? The meat's done, Jennifer called, appearing just then. She looked at Jessica with a perfectly measured surprise. Jennifer's carefully combed hair was now a little messy, like she just rolled out of bed, cleverly suggestive. I chose not to expose her little act. Jessica clearly hadn't expected Jennifer to be here. She glared at her with open hostility and demanded, "Why is she here?" Jennifer, sounding puzzled but utterly matter-of-fact, replied, "If I'm not here with my brother, should it be you, the ex-girlfriend, instead?" The words ex-girlfriend were emphasized deliberately, and Jessica's face darkened instantly. Seeing Jennifer like that, she obviously misunderstood. "Luke, you said you loved me once. True, I had said that I loved her, that we'd be together, marry, have children. But it had always been my wishful thinking. Jessica had always been the proud one, the one in control. For the first time, things had spun beyond her grasp. Her words sounded laughable to me. From the start, she was the one who lied, who brushed me off, who sicked others on me. And now she wanted to play the victim? What a joke. I looked at Jennifer. Reading the room, she excused herself, playfully winking at me as she left. "Brother, call me if you need anything." Now it was just Jessica and me. Seeing Jennifer go, Jessica thought she had hope. Her eyes lit up slightly, but before she could speak, I cut her off.
Jessica, don't you think you're pathetic?
You questioned me, but have you ever questioned yourself? From the start, you lied and hid things, and when the truth came out, you brushed it aside with a single line, not one real explanation. So tell me, what's this love of yours you claim to have? She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't let her. I kept going. Jessica, are you back here now because you think your so-called love is so noble it'll move me to forgive you? Do you think I'll still orbit around you like before, like I can't live without you? How ridiculous. Jessica, let me be clear. We're impossible now. From the moment we met again, when you dismissed years of lies with a careless line, it was already over. Jessica grabbed my hand, eyes red. "Luke, listen to me. I do love you." I just what? I stared coldly at her helpless, disheveled face. That you don't love me? That I was just a game to you? Admit it, Jessica. You don't love me. You only love yourself. The only reason you're trying to hold on now is because you can't stand to lose. Like a cat with its tail stepped on, Jessica snapped. She tried to prove her so-called love with a flood of useless words. I didn't want to keep tangling with her. I told her to leave, and before she could say another word, I shut the door and went back inside. Tony, my roommate from high school and college, who'd seen me and Jessica from campus to working life, looked at me, eyes full of gossip. "Well?" I was confused as I sat back down. "Well, what?" Tony pressed. "You and Jessica, duh! We broke up. What else?" Having finally seen her true face, breaking up didn't weigh on me the way it used to. It felt like setting down a heavy burden, a breath of relief. Tony perked up. "For real? You're not gonna cave and get back together?" I caught the skeptical look in his eyes and understood every breakup before I was the one crawling back. He'd often teased me as love-struck, all Jessica all the time. But I told him firmly, this time it was over for good, no strings left. Tony looked stunned, then almost giddy, like he was seeing the impossible. He chuckled weirdly, making me uneasy. I picked up some meat from the plate and glared at him. "What scheme are you cooking up now?" He looked sheepish, then said with guilty eyes, "Luke, what do you think of my sister Jennifer?" I glanced at Jennifer beside me. She was quietly dropping meatballs into the hot pot, then scooping out cooked meat and dividing it between me and Tony. She was so gentle. "She's beautiful, ambitious, kind, an amazing girl," I said sincerely. Tony listened to my words, his voice cautious. Then, "Luke, maybe you could." I instantly caught on and cut him off before he finished. Seeing Jennifer had just gone into the kitchen, I breathed easier, then glared at him fiercely. "What nonsense are you spouting again?" Tony grinned. "Just trying to help you heal, man. After Jessica, I shut him down quickly. Enough! Jennifer and I aren't a match. She's too young. I only see her as a sister. Not interested." Seeing how determined I was, Tony dropped it. "All right then. Shame. Though the girls had a crush on you for years. I nearly spat out my drink. Her? A crush on me? Of course. Why else do you think back in high school she always came to pick me up? It was just to see you." I glanced at Jennifer as she walked out of the kitchen and signaled Tony to drop it. That was the end of that. After finishing the hot pot, Tony and his sister helped me clean up. Then Tony and I slipped into nonstop chatter. Jennifer sat quietly on the couch, scrolling on her phone, occasionally chiming in with a few words. By dusk, maybe because Tony and I hadn't caught up in so long, he decided to stay the night while Jennifer headed back to her dorm. As Tony showered, I walked Jennifer to the door. Just as I was about to say goodbye and lock up, Jennifer pressed her pale arm against the door, slamming it shut, pinning me between her and the door. Barely 5'6", she stood on tiptoe, her clear eyes looking straight into mine. The usually sweet, delicate girl had summoned her courage. Brother, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm already an adult. Her ears flushed red, her gaze full of seriousness and stubborn resolve. Tony's words echoed in my mind. She's had a crush on you for years. Looking at Jennifer's determined face, I felt lost for words. For a split second, I admit, I was enchanted. Before I could respond, afraid to hear a rejection, Jennifer blurted, "See you tomorrow," and bolted. That night, after practically confessing, it was like Jennifer had broken through a barrier. She started striking up conversations every day, sometimes bumping into me by coincidence. Watching Jennifer trail after me yet again this month, I rubbed my temples. "Don't you have classes? Why are you always following me?" Her innocent eyes widened, as if accusing me. "Brother, you really don't know? It's summer break." I smacked my forehead. Working life had made me forget students even had winter and summer vacations. She was still my buddy's little sister I'd watched grow up since high school, so I didn't bluntly reject her. I just gently told her that a college student should spend summer vacation doing meaningful things, making her break colorful and rich. In other words, stop following me. After the wounds of my last relationship, I wasn't ready for another. You don't just erase that withdrawal pain. And Jennifer, being my friend's sister, the sister I'd known since high school, I couldn't bear to hurt her. But Jennifer pretended not to get the hint, playing dumb. I even talked to Tony about it, hoping as her brother he'd have a solution. Instead, he brushed it off, even gossiped about us. When September rolled around, I thought she'd finally head back to campus and give me a break, only to find she'd rented the apartment right across from mine. When I opened my door and saw her grinning from the other side, she chirped,
Brother, what a coincidence!
"Coincidence? Not at all." Jennifer clung to me like glue. Even when I got fed up and told her directly, she'd only step back sweetly, then edge closer again over time. Repeat, repeat. I was helpless. The one upside was that, with Jennifer across the hall, I now had a chef to mooch meals from. My cooking skills could only be described as edible, not tasty. Jessica had been useless in the kitchen too, so we always scraped by. Jennifer, though her skills made me suspect she'd trained somewhere. Every time I swore not to freeload again, the aroma drifting from her kitchen broke my resolve. In this back and forth of shared meals, our bond grew closer. Time passed, and my old wounds with Jessica slowly scabbed over. I rarely thought about the past anymore. I was applying to companies, rebuilding my life. Once I started working, Jennifer would wait for me after hours, eventually even picking me up. At first I told her not to, but she insisted. So our relationship hovered somewhere between friendship and romance. Jennifer never pushed it. She just treated me well, holding back her feelings to avoid pressuring me. Until one evening, I ran into her being harassed by a drunk thug. I rushed in, landing several punches before we ended up at the police station for mediation. Jennifer's face, pale with fear, lingered in my mind. Later, as she dabbed medicine on my cuts, her eyes stayed locked on me. As I pulled my hand away, she grabbed it tight and confessed. She said she was scared without my protection. What would she do? Her eyes glistened with tears, and in that moment, my protective instinct overwhelmed me. I admit, I was moved, so I said yes. Jennifer clung to me, grinning foolishly, like a carefree daughter from a wealthy household. The next time I saw Jessica was at a class reunion. Once so image-conscious, she now looked utterly broken. At the reunion, she sat alone on a sofa, drinking heavily, stripped of her former pride. I overheard classmates whisper that her family's company was in decline, and Jessica had fallen apart. The Millers were preparing to groom a new heir. When the gathering ended, I waited outside for Jennifer to pick me up. Jessica, reeking of alcohol, stumbled toward me. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Jennifer's car pulled up. Jessica froze, her eyes sad. "You with her now?" I slid into Jennifer's passenger seat, glanced at Jessica on the curb, and spoke as if to an old friend. "Jessica, The past is the past. Time to let go. I wish you happiness. Jennifer buckled my seatbelt and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jessica cover her face and collapse to the ground, sobbing like a lost child. But this world doesn't hand out second chances.